What's going on, everybody? This is Red Stick Reefer, and I just wanted to do this video update from my buddies over at BRK, Bayou Reef Keeping. We got Frag Nap coming up this weekend. I'm super excited, ready to throw some fuzzy sticks in this tank, some more fuzzy sticks in this tank. But tank's been running for a year and 3 months at this point. We're in early March. I think it's early March right now. Unbelievably cold outside right now. I tried to cut the grass earlier, but anyway, that was a mess. But anyway, this tank, like I said, it's been up for a year and 3 months at this point. Got the parameter issues figured out. What it was I'm using sodium bicarbonate, and if you mix according to the instructions on the new Forma pouch from BRS, your sodium bicarbonate is going to be almost twice as weak as your calcium carbonate. So anyway, I had to almost double the dose of my alkalinity to keep up with the calcium that I was dosing, and my parameters have been rock solid for the last 2 months. I think it's been 2 months. Calcium's been solid at about 450 to 460. Alkalinity's been at 9.5 for the last 2 months. So as you can see, the bottom of the tank is looking like crap at the moment, but that's okay because I'm actually, over the last couple of months, I've been very slowly removing the sand bed. And since I've been doing that and doing my weekly water changes, the corals have definitely responded. Excuse all the particulates flying around earlier. There's tang poop in there, and I've been vacuuming the sand bed, and you can see these just clumps of sand bed, just rock hard pieces of sand bed. Personally, I've never been huge on sand bed maintenance. Maybe that's part of the problem. But just over the years, I've never really had sand bed issues. When I moved into this house 5 or 6 years ago, and I moved my 120 into this house, I replaced the sand bed, and I noticed that's when I really started having issues. That using the Carib Sea, well, I used the Tropic Eden dry sand first, and it did that to me in my 120. And this, I've used the Carib Sea special grade, and of course it got rock hard on me. So I'm just done with sand beds for the direction I'm trying to go with high flow and SPS, and that's my thing. So the sand bed, in my case, it just adds to problems. It's a nutrient issue. I'm done with sand beds. Love the look at it. Love the look of them, but I'm not one to do the maintenance on the sand bed. And I don't tend to have a lot of fish or invertebrates that dig a lot in the sand bed. Anyway, I do have a sand sifting star there, but he's pretty much worthless. He hasn't done anything. So anyway, the tank's been doing okay, and like I said, since I've been replacing the sand bed, the corals have really responded. This green goblin, Anacropora, has really started to take off. The rainbow doom millie that I pretty much killed within the first 4 months of this tank's life is slowly coming back, and probably in the last 2 months it has re-encrusted about, I'd say, 1/4 of an inch. But hey, that's something, considering it was bleach white and looked dead. The aquamarine jewel has lost some color. It's a little faded, a little more faded, but it is totally encrusted over the epoxy plug that I put it on within the last 2 months. And it's also starting to get a little more green in the base, which it's never had before. But the original frag has faded a lot, considering the beautiful color it was when I first got it. But as much as it's encrusted, it's showing me that it's doing well, it's growing, it's moving on. The Sotopopinski coral, same thing. It's faded in color, but I'm really starting to get. It's really starting to encrust over the epoxy there. I've got about a 1/4 inch of incrustation in the last 2 months. Really one that's kind of been going downhill on me, which I'll talk about a little bit later, is this Garf Purple Bonsai. Now, I know there are no pests in this tank. All the SPS that I have in this tank have come from either battle corals or frag house corals, and I know they keep their systems pristine. Let's see, the PC Superman, same thing. It's started to encrust. The polyps are all out, and it's looking fuzzy and happy. This coral, the Worldwide Corals Yoda coral, it went downhill on me not long after I put it in here, like I said, within the first 4 months of this tank's life. And it's just been sitting there. I mean, polyps, this camera doesn't like to focus in, but the polyps are out on it, and it's just been surviving. It almost died on me. I thought it was going to come back. It hasn't really made a comeback. It's just been there. Not really going any more downhill, but not getting necessarily better either. This is Sanjay's leprechaun's beard, and same with this coral. It's faded, but over the last 2 months or so, I've gotten about a 1/4 inch where it has encrusted on the rock, so I can see things are improving with that one. The PC Rainbow has really been doing good. It was kind of faded before, still a little faded, but it's starting to gain some green on its base. It's really encrusting a lot. Also started getting a few new branches growing out, so it's doing okay. This one, the Worldwide Corals Yellow Tips, has really started taking off. It hasn't been encrusting much, but those three or four, or shoot, 6 new little coralites that are shooting off to the right have just started in the last month or two. Up at the top where it forks, that right fork has grown almost a 1/2 inch, and it started, I don't know if it's going to show in the camera, I don't have any kind of filter on this camera, but it's really started to regain its yellow tip, because it was solid blue for a while and just slowly encrusting. It's doing good. The jawjacker has faded, but the polyps have been out, and that's almost 1/2 inch of where it's encrusted over the epoxy just in the last month or two. So it's really starting to encrust. Same with the Reef Raft, the Ven. Over the last month or two, it's got a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch where it's just encrusted over the epoxy. So the Zoas are still doing their thing. Got a couple of new polyps sprout out on the Rastas and the Emeralds on Fire, but no new polyps, not much growth on the Sunny D's. They're just kind of hanging out. This coral's been doing well, the Maze Brain. When I got that frag at Fragnyap last year, it was a cut up square piece of Maze Brain, so you can see the edges have really started to curl over, and new mouths and ridges have formed, and it's really starting to look like your typical brain coral. So not the most colored up piece, but it is growing, it's doing well. these Akins are just going nuts. There's new mouths sprouting everywhere. That's got its feeder tentacles out now. It's really fat and happy. It's been growing like a weed really over the last couple of months. This Raptor's Peace Favia is, I don't know if I can get it in the camera, but it's starting to fold and divide and do its thing. New mouths are sprouting all the way around it along the bottom. I don't know, I doubt the camera's going to pick it up, but it's got some decent color to it as well. So anyway, overall, since I started removing the sand bed, this tank has really started to improve and been sticking with my weekly water changes. But I really think I really think at this point, for this small a volume of water, for these acros, as few as there may be in this tank, I don't think the acros like the Yoda and the purple bonsai there, I don't think they're getting, just through the weekly, you know, sometimes I do 20 gallons, sometimes I'll do 10. I don't think they're getting enough trace elements. I don't know why I had trouble thinking of that, but I don't think they're getting the trace elements they need. And I did a month's worth of Prodibio dosing last month. I didn't really notice that many effects, unless what I'm seeing now with, you know, the frag starting to encrust and the yellow tips really starting to take off. Maybe I'm just now in the second month starting to see the after effects of dosing the Prodibio. I don't really know, but I do know that for sure once I started removing the sand bed, everything in the tank perked up. So I'm going with the sand removal. I don't think Prodibio really did much for me, at least in this setup, at least in this system. I don't think it did much for me. I'm sure it was better than nothing, but while I was dosing it, at least, I didn't see a drastic change in anything like I did when I started removing the sand bed. So, speaking of trace elements, the calcium reactor that I had, I wish I had a light on this camera, but I don't. This mess that I've got going on down here is the installation of the calcium reactor. There's water flowing through it now. I just hooked up some tubing to one of my extra manifolds that I had under the tank, and that tubing runs over to the calcium reactor. Thought I was going to have this thing hooked up last week. It's just a Milwaukee pH controller and a Milwaukee regulator and the Skims 122 calcium reactor. It's way overrated for this tank. I think it's rated for a 260 gallon tank, but I can start it off with a good drip, but a higher pH, say 6.9, 7, and just, you know, dial it in from there. I definitely don't want to nuke what few corals I have in here, and I'm going to be picking up some SPS at Fragnap, so I don't, you know, I don't want to nuke those either. But thought I was going to have it hooked up last week, and this regulator is shot. I thought I could reuse it from my old 90-gallon system, but as you can see on the top of the CO2 tank, that is 2016 flood crud on top of that CO2 cylinder. So these gauges are shot. I thought they might work, but they don't. So I've got some new gauges coming. These Milwaukee gauges are the cheapest ones I could find. They're only 99 bucks. So I got another set of those coming. So hopefully this week we'll have this calcium reactor online, and I can stop dosing the 2-part completely, and heck, maybe put the doser on the 180 while I'm trying to get it going. But Anyway, so that's my solution to trying to get the appropriate amount of trace elements to the SPS that are going to be going into this small 30-gallon tank. Hoping it works out, but hey, even after, I guess, almost 10 years in the hobby, I'm still learning. We're all learning together, and all we can do is try and see what happens. So anyway, this is the 30-gallon long update, year and 3 months update. Just wanted to give y'all some quick video. Nothing spectacular here. A lot of these super nice SPS tanks that people see a lot of times in pictures online, they don't realize how much work goes into it and how long it actually takes to get to that point. Everybody's got to go through growing pains with new tanks, seasoned veterans. Everybody's got to get there. It just takes time, even for seasoned veterans, especially somebody like me. When you lose everything in the flood, I didn't have many colonies to from an old system to transfer to a 180-gallon tank. So I'm starting all over again with little 1-inch frags. So here we go. Anyway, that's my update. I'll let y'all go. Bye.